So I want to do a little video on the repairs that I did to this pontoon boat. When we first bought the boat, it had some damage to the toons that we thought was minor damage. We thought it was easily repairable. Honestly, we thought that they just needed to be washed, the toons. They were pitted, but we didn't realize that they were pitted, and a majority of the pits were completely the pits had completely penetrated through the aluminum of the pontoon. And so once we got the boat out of the water and really inspected it, it became pretty apparent that it was amazing the boat was actually floating. I'm not really sure if there was, I don't know how it was floating. When we did pull it out, there was some water in the toons, but not a whole lot, not as much as you would think, with the shape that the toons were in. What we had done is we ended up taking the pontoons off the boat to repair them. We were researching methods that we could use to possibly repair the pontoons. It became pretty apparent that there wasn't an easy way to repair them. And basically the best way, or the most effective way, would be to weld the holes shut, which wasn't an option because there just wasn't enough material left. The material had been so deteriorated that there was no way, it was impossible to even think about doing an aluminum repair, much less, I mean, there was 76 feet of pontoons. This is a 28-foot pontoon boat. Method of welding, just that wasn't in the realm of possibilities. It's not like we didn't want to do the welding, because I mean, this is the transom. This is what we had installed, so to beef it up. And this is all, by the way, this is all aluminum. This is not a solid aluminum plate, but there's this 4-inch box tubing, 4-inch box tubing here, 4-inch box tubing here, and then it's all outlined in 4-inch box tubing around all of the outside. So this is solid. This is a solid mass, and we beefed this up. The boat's rated for a 115, and we're sticking a 150 on it, and so that's what we modified that. But anyways, back to what I really wanted to make this video about was the repair that we had done. So this is the pontoon repair, and what we had done is about half of this pontoon is covered. The parts that were sitting in the water and that had been eroded or corroded by electrolysis, and it happened across all of them. So this fiberglass mat that we used to repair them was a chopped mat. And this is the first one that we started on, this pontoon. And then we realized that the chopped mat probably wasn't the best material to use for this application. Fiberglass cloth. This fiberglass cloth mat ended up working out a lot better. It was just easier to apply the resin to. It soaked in better. It just made it all around just an easier product to apply compared to the chop mat, and it looks a little bit nicer too, I think. So what we had done is just cut this mat into strips, and they're about 3-foot strips. I overlapped about 1 inch a piece, and just laid them on one by one. And this matting goes all the way underneath. So 50% here. Around that is what's covered by the fiberglass. So if you look, and everywhere that I had looked, you can't repair these pontoons with fiberglass. Nobody says that you can do it. They say that it won't work. It'll peel off. Well, this boat has been sitting outside all winter long, so it's been through hot, cold. I don't have any issues at all with with any of the fiberglass peeling off. The boat was on the water. Obviously, you can see that the outsides were washed, power washed, but the insides here still have water marks on them. But however, the boat is holding up well. Now, is this boat ocean worthy? Not by any means. You know, is it worthy for, I don't know if you're familiar with Lake of the Ozarks, you know, a heavily traveled, you know, a heavily populated lake where you can get some, like, you know, some 6-foot waves? No, I mean, I wouldn't take it in that. No, I don't. And I really don't use the boat for very many, I don't use the boat on many public waterways to begin with. I mostly use it on private. So for my application, I was willing to take the risk and say, hey, I'll give it a shot to see if we can repair it with the fiberglass. So far, so good. Basically what had happened, though, and the reason for the pitting of the pontoons was someone had painted these pontoons with a marine paint that had copper in it. Copper is a common additive to marine paint. You've been on this boat is approximately 88, so I don't know when the toons were painted, but you know, let's say they were painted 15 years ago. That 15 years it did quite a number for the electrolysis. The electrolysis is what causes the pitting. So whoever painted them used the wrong type of paint. The boat was never in salt water, never been used in salt water. So that's what happens when you use the wrong type of paint for aluminum pontoons. So take note of that. Don't ever use copper paint or any copper additives in your paint for using to paint aluminum. So back onto the procedures and methods that I used to repair these pontoons was I stripped off the old paint, and that was very important. I wanted to make sure that the paint was, the old paint that had the copper in it was all stripped off. That was very important because I didn't want that to continue to cause issues with corrosion. So we were very adamant about getting all the old paint off and stripping down to bare aluminum. In order to do that, we used a wire wheel on an angle grinder with a lot of sanding and a lot of time and it was a huge pain. It was a lot of prep work. After we sanded them with the aluminum wire, or after we sanded with the wire wheel, got all the paint cleaned up, we washed them with a muriatic. Yeah, muriatic acid, same stuff you use to wash masonry stuff, bricks and concrete and such. We used that, I believe it was an 8-to-1 solution that we used, just to make sure that we got all that paint and all that other crap and corrosion and got everything and got them real clean. We wanted to get these really clean so that epoxy stuck really well. So we got them cleaned up, washed off the acid, and then we used a 2-part epoxy resin for the fiberglass matting. So the fiberglass matting, there's different types of a resin that you can use, and the resin that we used was they call it a repair type resin. And there's resins for building new, and then there's resins for repair. And the resins for repair, from what I understand, are a little bit more durable. Didn't come with drain plugs. We had installed these drain plugs. These are aluminum drain plugs that we welded in, and I installed those just so that I could, whenever I pulled it off the water, I could always check to see, and I've never had any issues with water, never had anything in them after I've repaired them with the fiberglass, never had another issue with water inside of the toons. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to help out, help answer, or help solve. Since there's not a whole lot of information on anyone attempting this repair, you know, I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise this repair. You know, I mean, it worked for me in my application, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody in their applications. I just want to say that it can work if the proper steps are taken, and you know, you have some type of experience with using epoxy resin. This isn't the first time I've used epoxy resin. I've rebuilt a boat hull, and then the floor stringers I've done on a previous boat. So I did have some experience with using epoxy resin. So this wasn't my first project, but I would say if you have some experience with fiberglass and you have some experience with the resin, I would say, you know, if you think that this is something that you're confident in your abilities that you may be able to tackle, I say, you know, you got to know, you know, a man's got to know his limitations, and if you think it's within your limitations, well, I think it's worth a shot. If it's done properly, this is proof that it can work. Like I said, doesn't mean it's going to work in every application. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. But this is what I've done. This is what I've experienced. And so far, so good. Like I said, I've got 1 year of use out of it, 1 season of use out of it. And I'm very confident and hopeful that I'm going to get another season out of it this year, and hopefully several more in the future.